are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Where'd the old town go? They moved it all north of here in a shopping mall.
Good morning and welcome to Old Town Cleveland here on WOOP FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.woopfm.com. You can call us here at 614-5553. Good morning, Debbie. Tell us what's going on today.
Well, good morning. We still have fruits and vegetables up on our screen because we've been talking to the Master Gardeners of Bradley County this morning. And if you'll tune in next Saturday.
See, I didn't put any nuts or anything in there because I didn't want to say that those guys are nuts.
Yeah,
because they're not. Because they're really, really smart. I will change that here in just a second.
Okay,
if you'll talk.
I'll know that you will. Do we have all the recorders on? We've had a hectic morning in here this morning. So, folks, thank you for letting us catch up. Today is March the 7th, 2015. Tomorrow is daylight savings time. Be sure to spring your clocks forward. Why we're still doing that, I don't know and I don't understand, but we just have to do it. And anyway, and I believe for those of you who are heading up to Cleveland State today to go to the Dr. Seuss program, that's a very popular thing in Cleveland. I believe that has been canceled according to Cleveland State's website. I went on the website last night and it said due to unforeseen circumstances it was canceled. If someone finds out that it's any different from that, which I doubt that it is, please let me know. And I wanted to announce something too. Ron, our good friend Anthony Dunn up at G Daddy Barbecue, starting something new this Monday, on Monday through Fridays, out of his innovation space up at Cleveland State. They're going to be selling lunch. And I don't think you can sit down there and eat, but you can, unless we don't really know for sure about that. But from 11 to 2 every day, he's going to have a small amount of menu items available for sale for lunch. What lucky folks you are to be up on that in town. And if you're wondering where that is, it's just on the north end of the tennis courts, Ron.
Up by the baseball there, there's a baseball
it's
tennis court. It's
called Innovation Center, and he's over on the back side, and you'll see his grill when you get there. Go up and visit Anthony and support him in this endeavor. Guarantee you it's good barbecue.
And also at the Bradley Square Mall today, they have some the Master Gardeners and some other programs are up there today. If you have any agricultural questions or gardening questions, you can go up and see those folks. And also something happened this last Monday night. Deb and I filmed a episode of The Booze Traveler for the Travel Channel back in October, and the episode that we're involved in was shown last Monday night. If you'd like to see it, it's coming on at midnight again tonight. Or
is it tonight or the 14th?
Well, it's Saturday night, midnight. Okay. Or you can go to YouTube and type a search for Booze Traveler, and it'll be the red, white, and booze version. Mm-hmm. And Deb and I are in the first 2 or 3 minutes, but the entire segment's about 42 minutes without commercials.
Entire history-loving friends, you're going to love it, and you're going to be so proud that you live in Tennessee.
It talks about whiskey all across the state, and something else very interesting they did that, Charles, you're going to be very interested in. They showed the vintage baseball games that I think was in the Nashville area. And I know that, Charles, we're going to talk about that later because you've been involved in that in the Knoxville area.
Yes, sir.
So I think you would enjoy watching them in their wool uniforms that you'll be very appreciative of. And one team had on overalls and some big brim hats. And
Highland
others.
Rim Distillers.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll. So if you go to the Booze Traveler on YouTube, or you can go to Old Town Cleveland on Facebook, and we have it posted there. You just click on the link and go over there. So Deb, go ahead.
And Ron, the guys that came on right after us, Bruce and Gomer from the Smoky Mountain Distillery, made me and you look like sophisticated folks.
They were, but they covered.
We were a little concerned because and we film people all the time, so we understand this. You go in, you don't really know what they're going to do with the footage. They talk to us for absolutely hours, and then two and a half minutes of it is actually on the screen, and you just don't know what picture somebody from Boston is going to paint of the folks from Tennessee. So we were a little bit concerned, but like I say, they made us look pretty good. And then the two guys from the distillery with the little white beards and the funny little hats that took him out in the woods and showed him a still made us look really sophisticated.
We got involved because of our documentary we did about dirt track racing, and the producers from California called and asked if we'd come to the small track in Hole in the Wall, Tennessee, and while on the discussion, he says, you wouldn't happen to have any moonshine you could bring us. And I told him, I just happen to have some, yes.
Happen to have some.
And the way I got that moonshine was we were sitting here on the radio show one day, and we were talking about moonshine, and I said jokingly that I hadn't had any moonshine in a long time. Well, honestly, at that point, I don't think I'd ever had moonshine in my life. 15 minutes later, someone brought in a quart of moonshine and sat down in front of us here. And so we had put peaches in it and let it soak in our freezer for just, somebody said that would make it sweeter, but
after 3 years it had not one crystal of ice in it, if that tells you anything.
And the peaches had become potato chips. They were crisp.
Crunchy.
Anyway, so we took our peach moonshine out there, and I had the opportunity to drink that moonshine on camera with Jack Maxwell, the host of the Booze Traveler, and that's sort of, he travels around the country drinking different type of drinks around the world. And the only time they filmed in Tennessee, in the United States, was here in Tennessee. So I got to drink moonshine, illegal moonshine, and he kept saying, "Where did you get this?" And I said, "Can't tell you." So,
but we did not purchase it. We did, however,
it's still illegal. It's still illegal. But the evidence.
We're over in the middle of Middle Tennessee and absolutely no man's land, and I'm thinking, maybe this wasn't a good idea. But it was a wonderful experience, and we left our quart there, and the little sound people finished it off. Yeah, they were very happy.
The evidence has been destroyed because all the film crew and all that, they said they wanted to drink it, and it didn't take long for it to get gone. So.
It was a pretty exciting trip. We had never done anything on that scale.
But although it's talking about booze, it's an unbelievable advertisement for the state of Tennessee. It talked about the Smoky Mountain breweries, and it talked about some smaller type breweries in the areas in Tennessee.
Someone actually makes rum in Tennessee, just outside of Lynchburg, and on the show, they say that the population's 36 of that little hometown. It's going to be 38 when the twins arrive. And so it was just a whole fun show, and you guys that love history are going to love it. All right, Charlie, we've yacked long enough. This is Charlie. Say your last name for me.
Road Armor.
Road Armor.
Road Armor.
Road Armor.
Road Armor. Wow, that's very Scottish. Yes?
German.
Oh, well, talk to me about that. When did your family come here? Do you know? Get with the microphone.
Oops, sorry.
Hey, a microphone's a good thing. This is radio.
How's that?
That's good.
Okay. My mom's side is Kathy's, which are McPhee's, and they actually came into.
Now wait a minute, back up. They are what?
My mother's maiden name is Kathy, last name.
Okay.
And the Kathys are a part of the family, except of the McPhee's.
The McPhee's. Okay, didn't know that.
And so the Kathys actually probably in the late 1500s, 1600s moved over to Northern Ireland. They lived there about 3 generations. We're not really clear on
like
my
that.
particular family because it kind of ended once the generation left around 1715 and came to the colonies. And so they've been, on my mom's side, have been here since about 1715.
Wow.
And then they travel up, then down the Great Wagon Road into western North Carolina, and that's pretty much where they stayed. The Road Armors, they just kind of, what we can tell is they show up here sometime after the Revolution. So they could have been immigrants, they could have been Hessian soldiers left over, we don't know for sure. And then they end up following the Great Wagon Road down, and they've settled in western North Carolina. And so pretty
And
much
the rest is history.
that's how
So
I-
the Great Wagon Road, where did it? Which Great Wagon Road are you talking about? What area do you think it covered?
basically it's kind of, if I'm not mistaken, it's been a long time.
I know, I understand that.
But I'm thinking it comes down kind of the Shenandoah Valley, and then at the earlier part of the 1700s, it kind of dropped down towards what we would say, I guess, Charlotte is now, kind of that area, right at the foothills. After the 1770s, people started pushing their way into the mountains, pushing the Cherokee west, and so
So that's
that-
different from the stagecoach roads.
right. The Great Wagon Road was just it was a way of traveling from
It's the
say,
interstate of the time.
Pennsylvania down to the south.
I was just always curious about it, and you really can't. Charlie's like me, Ron. He'll say, "Well, I really don't know much."
Yeah.
Ron always gets tickled. He'll ask me a question. I say, "I really don't know much about that." And 15 minutes later, I'm still giving details.
Now,
but
Charles,
it comes to me as I talk.
Charles, you are the
Charlie.
Charlie.
Charlie, I go by Charlie.
Yeah. Charlie, you're the director of the Sequoia Museum here in Tennessee, right off
Yes, sir.
411 Highway, right?
Yes, sir.
And tell
Okay.
people
Sequoia.
why it ended up in that spot, where it's at, and why it ended up there.
It goes back to if a lot of folks my age and older remember the Snell Darter issue, the environmental issue about when they were building the Tellico Lake, and that's part of that story.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The environmentalists were protesting the lake because they didn't want the Snell Darter to go extinct, and the Cherokee, both the Cherokee Nation and the Eastern Band and descendants, were protesting. They didn't want the lake because it was going to cover up probably 98% of Cherokee homeland, Chota, one of the most sacred sites in Cherokee culture and history. And so when I guess Jimmy Carter signed a bill into law that said you will ignore all federal laws, finish the dam, close the gates, and be done with this project. When that happened, the Cherokee realized there's no stopping it. And so they went to the Tennessee Valley Authority and said, okay, you're covering up our ancestral homeland. How are you going to help us to commemorate and remember the Cherokee that lived there? And so, to make a long story short, there was 38 concepts. And in those 38 concepts, one of them was Sequoia Birthplace Museum, tell the story of one of the most famous Cherokees and one of the massive accomplishments of a human being on this planet.
Did he actually ever live in that area?
Oh,
that we
yes.
know?
He was born in
Yeah,
around
that's
the
right.
village of Tuskegee, which there, again, that's one of the towns underwater. And so
It's very. I wouldn't call it frustrating, but it's very sad to me to go there and stand and look at that lake and know how much we covered up.
Mhm.
And I understand progress and all that, but it's sad to me that I think that what a treasure we could have had.
You know,
I mean, the museum's a wonderful treasure, and it's really grown over the last few years. When people come to the museum there, what can they see, Charlie?
well, just one little side note.
Go ahead.
If it hadn't been for the lake, we wouldn't have as much information about the Overhill Cherokee.
Well, that's true,
and
too.
the people that lived in that valley.
Who did the
because,
excavation there? UTK?
The University of Tennessee, their anthropology department. We inquire following what I guess TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority. All those artifacts are at the McClung Museum up at UT. And so there was some incredible, like I say, information. There were things recovered
That's true.
that would have never been done. It was the largest archaeological project in the United
Is
States.
that information in a book, or is it just?
Probably Dr. Jeff Chapman's book, Tellico Archaeology.
Okay.
That's probably the best. You can pick it up at the gift shop at Sequoia Birthplace Museum.
Imagine that.
Yeah, so you give us a call. That's the leading book on all the work that was done in Tellico.
That's the one thing about TVA. When they came in and they were getting ready to cover up something, they just, if it took 4 years, they made it take 4 years to go ahead and excavate and prove things. Now, they found walls and stuff, didn't they? And then the one thing that survives, which always amazes me, are the big poles that hold up the building. Not that they survive, but you know where the holes are.
Yeah, well, they have the post holes.
They'll
when
just come out as dark dirt, but then there's a blueprint for the building, so you know it had 7 sides, and you know how many big logs were holding it up. So it's pretty telling.
Mm-hmm.
Draws a picture.
Well, for let's see, for the 250th anniversary of Timberlake, which took place
Just somewhere
3
close
years
to
ago,
that.
I believe about 3 years ago, we took the archaeology that had been done up at Chota at the townhouse that was there, and there were aerial photographs that they had laid. I believe it was paper plates down on the holes, and then basically shot a photograph from the top, and you could actually see the whole outline of the support posts, the wall, outer wall, the doorway. You could see how they had built the framework for the bleachers to get over 500 people inside the structure. Timberlake says over 500 people were able to get in there.
Wow, that's a pretty good sized building.
So, and it was not just some sticks and twigs and some vines twisted together. This was some very high-skilled architecture.
Made without modern tools.
Well,
I always look at those big post holes and think, how in the world did they, first of all, dig that hole deep enough? Second of all, stand up a post that big?
when you got a whole village.
It takes a village.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they probably could build it quicker. It took there was 4 of us, a tractor and chainsaws, and the longest portion took was stripping the bark off of the logs. The construction, like I say, we had the tractor to actually kind of a boom and would run them up and stand them up. But more than likely, the Cherokee in the 1700s, 1600s, built it a lot quicker and a lot easier because they had the manpower, 50, 60 warriors to go and stand these things up.
So when we look at the lake now, there was an entire village there with a river that was a border. What do you think?
If you're talking about Chota?
Chota.
Okay, up at Chota, originally the first capital was Tanasi. Tanasi was the first capital.
Which the word Tennessee comes from?
And exactly, yeah. It was the Tanasi River and Tanasi town. Moitoi was he was a Cherokee that was elected as the first emperor or the head man. Some people, that's another long story. But
he's out of my Raper family.
Oh, okay. Well, Moitoi comes down out of from Tellico Plains, Tahlequah, comes down and sets up the capital at Tanasi, there along the river, Tanasi River. And that's about 1730s. Around the 1750s, probably like 1740s, 1750s, Moitoi's son moves the capital over to Chota. Chota, apparently, from the archaeology, is not really anything there. Nothing's going on in the early 1700s. It apparently pops up as a suburb of Tanasi.
Suburb.
To use a term.
That's where the word suburb came from.
And so there's a couple of creeks that divided the two together from, Tanasi from Chota. And then, as I said, I think Chota was higher ground. It was a bit higher than Tanasi was. And so the son moves it over, the capital over to Chota. By the 1760s, Chota has become the town, the principal town.
It really was. It really was.
And it becomes one of the most sacred towns in Cherokee culture.
When did the living here where the Trail of Tears began here in
it began at everybody's front door.
Wherever you left from. But the Indians had already been removed. When did the Indians get removed from that area? And Tennessee had already been formed at that time, right?
Yes.
I mean, time we removed them here in 1838.
Yes.
So when did the Cherokee get moved out of the area where Sequoia is now?
Okay.
Where the museum is in that area?
Tennessee becomes a state in June of 1796,
right?
1st of June. And we do Statehood Day. So it's the closest Sunday to June 1st. So, and that'll be coming up in our calendar events
faster than you think.
Yes. And so, let's see. As you mentioned earlier, Sequoia started probably working on the writing system here, there, around Tuskegee. He's living in that area. But he would have left. There's different arguments that he left early. I think he's still there, at least probably by 1815.
He traveled quite a bit, I think.
And he did travel about.
Because he was very well known
Mhm.
and in the inner circles, a lot of places, from what I read.
Well, but we know he's definitely left there by 1819 because that's when all the Cherokee had moved out. It's the Tellico Treaty of I think it's
19, I think, or 7,
18,
some right in there somewhere.
There's an 1817. There's an 1819
Mm-hmm.
or 1818. Yeah, there's I think 2-3 treaties right there, and
Because
by-
I think Hamilton County started in 1819.
Did they move? Did those Cherokees? Did they move from Tennessee then into the Cherokee Nation, or they moved out west at that time?
That was the Cherokee Nation. The Tellico Blockhouse was built, and the soldiers there were to patrol to make sure white settlers were not encroaching on Cherokee land. If you had business with a Cherokee, you went to the Tellico Blockhouse, you got a passport. You went in, conducted business, you came back and checked out at Tellico Blockhouse. So it was there as a control point. As Thomas Jefferson talked about the Americanization program, that was where we'll teach all the natives, not just Cherokee, but all natives, we'll teach them to be like the little white European settlers. Cash crop, raise your money, feed yourself, sell the surplus, make money. And you don't need, what it all boiled down to, is then you don't need parts of 7 states like the Cherokee to go hunting deer to feed your people.
Well, see, and they also changed the roles of men and women. Women had always worked the gardens, and the men were hunters and gatherers, or hunters. And they kind of changed that. They wanted the men to go out and work in the gardens and take care of the livestock, which was typically women's work. And the women, they put them inside weaving and stuff.
But in 1817, where did they go? I mean, they had to leave their area.
They
They came down this way.
They came to the
McMinn County.
McMinn County and Bradley County and Georgia.
Basically, if you think back,
Just
before,
shrank it.
You're looking at like 7 states:
Right.
Western North Carolina, Tennessee, parts of Virginia, Kentucky, South Carolina, upstate Georgia, upstate Alabama. And what happens from the moment the Europeans, 17, the first treaty is like 17.
Early.
I'm thinking 30 something, but 1700, early 1700. That's a section in South Carolina. And so from that moment on, there's little rips, there's little pieces that are bought, traded for, kind of
Stolen.
and it's slowly whittled down. And as it's slowly whittling down, the nation, the Cherokee Nation, because that's I was trying to think there at Brown's Ferry at Moccasin Bend. We had a speaker last week that was talking about that you stood there and you were standing in the United States looking across the river into the Cherokee Nation.
Right.
And so it was a different country. It was the Cherokee land.
Right. That's what happened here, at the Hiwassee River. And when the final move came in, the Hiwassee River on the other side was Tennessee, and we live here what was the Cherokee Nation. You had to get a passport to come in here at Charleston, Tennessee, and that's where the Cherokee, that's where Scott come in, and not Wendell Scott. That's the race car driver. What's the general's name?
General Scott.
General Scott.
What did Winfield Scott?
Winfield.
Winfield.
Race car driver.
Well, yeah, Wendell Scott. Wendell Scott was a race car driver.
I have no idea who that is.
He was the first black NASCAR driver. Wendell Scott. That was Winfield Scott. Yes.
His mind works in mysterious ways, Charlie.
If you go back to how Winfield Scott was tied to, he went on and later was involved in the Civil War, and one of the soldiers under him was George Custard in the Civil War, who then signed him to go out west and to his death. So Scott was the person who ran Fort Cass here. So.
Yes.
Yeah, so a lot of those Cherokees that lived in that area ended up in Bradley County and Polk and Chattanooga and the areas here, and then once again they were squeezed and shipped out.
Well, and see, like Sequoyah, who was living there, in the Tuskegee area around, he was probably a mile and a half around the blockhouse. Somewhere around there's the count. But see, then Sequoia packs up and ends up down in Willstown, Alabama, which right is Fort Payne, Alabama today. So you have some of the Cherokees moving deeper into the Cherokee Nation. Some are just moving south. And then after about 5 years, while Sequoia's living down in Fort Payne, he packs up and leaves and moves to Arkansas. And so he's one of what we call an old settler. He's gone west way before the removal happens. So
tell us a little bit about Sequoia. I mean, it seemed like I read that he had some physical problems and wasn't accepted sometime. And he had another name, too.
George Gist.
George Gist, yes. I knew there was some more English-sounding name there. So now was that so? Sequoia his given name, and George Gist something he accepted, or how did that happen?
A lot of them have had multiple names,
Right. Throughout your life, I mean, that's one of the things about doing Cherokee genealogy is you will have, something happens and they change the name. Sequoia. There's different arguments about the name Sequoia. Generally, everybody says it translates to pig's foot. And, I think that some of the, it's not that the Cherokee are making fun of him. It's a description. How does a pig walk? He walks with a stiff leg. I've found over 25 different reasons why Sequoia had a limp or walked with a stiff leg. Rheumatoid arthritis. The most common one is as a small boy, he's involved in a hunting accident, it's infected, he almost dies. There's nerve damage, but he gets better and he walks with a limp.
Or one of them is that he was born that way, which is a little, a lot of times any child that was born with a defect was allowed to die. They just knew that you had to be self-sufficient when you got older, and so I've always kind of been curious about that one theory.
Yeah.
But, people just knew the stories and they didn't write them down. And during the removal, a lot of the stories were lost.
So,
real quick here, you're listening to Whoop FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.whoopfm.com. You can call us here at 614-5553. We're talking about Sequoia Museum and a few other things, Fort Loudon. We're going to get in there. And we're going to talk about vintage baseball going on in Tennessee, and Charles Road Armor.
Charlie.
I can't want Charlie Road Armor is the director of the museum and knows a lot about the area up there, and also was involved in vintage baseball league in the Knoxville area, and he wore a wool uniform during the summer months to show how baseball used to be. That was one brave man, because it was hot last summer.
I always tell Charlie I'd pay $10 to get to look in his closet, because he does a lot of reenactments from some at Fort Loudon, and he just he can't hardly fake the being Native American, but he sure can do a lot of other things. Now, last summer too, didn't you have the big pork chops?
that's what I'm working on again.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
He had the big sideburns for the baseball league and really looked the part.
Are you going to do the hot uniform baseball again this year?
Oh, yeah.
Was it painful?
No, it's actually one of the more comfortable outfits. It's our particular.
I just don't believe that.
I'm on the Knoxville Holstons, and we wear it's a white cotton shirt. We wear it's blue pant or black pants with, dark pants with light blue stripes, and so they're cotton. So the clothes I wear. I actually enjoy wearing them. Some of the team will only wear it for the game. I wear them. I go out to town or whatever. I wear those clothes. So
there he is again. Yeah.
Up at the Sequoia Birthplace Museum. Let me make sure it's called the Birthplace Museum there, and it's a great place to be. What's the hours of operation while we're mentioning? We'll mention that several times.
We're open every day, Monday through Saturday, 9 to 5, and Sunday we're open 12 to 5.
And the cost?
Cost, it's $3 for adults. We have senior rates. We have tour rates of $1.50 for groups of 10 or more. We have school groups and civic groups, scout groups. Let's see. We do have 2 free admission days. The Statehood Day, which we mentioned, it's
June 1st,
June.
I think this year. It's May 31st.
May 31st.
May 31st, 12 to 5, and it's free admission on that day. So it's that last Sunday of May. And then we also have Sequoia Remembrance Day, which is, I believe it's the first Sunday of August every year, and that's this year, August 2nd. Is a free admission day. And both of those events, we have interpreters. We have our blacksmith shop open. Sequoia was a blacksmith, and so and that plays a lot into him creating a writing system. And a lot of people don't realize he created a numbering system before that. So we talk about the numbering system, and
We got a call here.
okay.
Good morning, live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hi, how are you? I just wanted to share a little piece of history with that area also, because I had the privilege. This is Debbie, by the way. I call.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
And when I was small, we moved up here when my our stepfather was half Cherokee and lived in the Von Orr ball play area. And we were actually at the protest where the Indians did. We had the sit-in up there.
I've heard about
And
it.
so we were there for about a week doing the sit-in, trying to protest the flooding of the area.
Yes.
And it was just an experience that you couldn't even begin to imagine. I met so many wonderful people, and I was very young. But at the same time, I will never, ever forget the whole.
You know, when you said that image of seeing the pictures in the newspaper popped in my head. That is very fascinating. You need to write down what you remember about that experience.
It was just amazing, and absolutely amazing. And it's so funny to me because I remember the area before the flooding and then the after, and then the changing of the area. And it's just amazing to me to go up there because my mom still lives there. And I'll go up and drive around to our favorite hangouts and go up in the area where the sit-in was. We used to go up, well, we go up there and go swimming. There's a little camp area, and it's absolutely one of the most beautiful places that you could ever go to. Takes a good while to get back there, but it's just absolutely amazing.
I've always felt like the spot there where the museum is very spiritual.
Oh, it's just moving, and when the water drops and you're out there on the back side, it's just eerie. It's just really eerie, but it's just such a neat experience. So anybody who gets a chance needs to go up there.
Ron and I went up there and we just explored around, and we found little cemeteries that were right on the edge of the water that wasn't quite flooded, and we found just to drive down through the cornfields and just imagine who all had planted corn there at one time. It's really interesting.
And it's such a neat area, and it's just go up there. And when they have the reenactments, there's a lot of people from this area that go up and do the reenactments there.
You know, and when they have those big things, there's always somebody there selling fried bread.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Fried bread is always worth the trip.
You better believe it.
And Charlie, I want to invite you to anytime you have something coming up, always call us the weekend before.
Okay.
And be sure to announce it because people will come.
Oh, definitely.
They hear it on Old Town Cleveland, they'll come.
Okay.
Oh yes, definitely. And that would be wonderful because I know they do several things up there and have several different presentations that are just absolutely fascinating. So
And we're going to announce something that's happening there in the next couple of weeks or the next 3 weeks. So be sure to listen to that. It's all on the Sunday afternoons, and it's a good thing to go see. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for being a caller. And write that stuff down.
I need to.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Coming
I love
up,
our callers. I love our callers.
coming up at the Birthplace Museum is tomorrow at 2 to 3. Someone we know here, Erin Medley, who is the
Ranger.
she's the park manager.
She is a gun-toting woman is what she is.
She's the top dog in charge down there at the Red Clay Council Ground, a Cleveland High graduate there. She's going to be at the museum there, and they're going to do. She's going to talk about Red Clay Council Grounds, a capital exile, and that's tomorrow too. Then the following every Sunday in March, the next Sunday will be Anita Finger Smith. We'll talk about the genesis of the Eastern Band of the Cherokee.
Now she's
Indians.
from Cherokee, isn't she?
She's not originally.
What
She's
what
married.
job does she do?
She married a gentleman that's an enrolled member. They have, I believe it's Big Meat. It's the. It's
I have met her, and she's an excellent speaker, by the way.
awesome speaker. She actually does for the Eastern Band. She's like a professional genealogist.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. I knew that she had something to do with the Eastern Band.
And she deals with like state of North Carolina and like the enrollment issues, or like with the Bureau of Indian Affairs.
Now, are these free?
Yes, these are all free.
Yeah.
These are also free. I forgot to. I should.
But you pay to go into the museum if you want to see the museum.
On our talk days, you can kind of go see it for
okay,
free,
I
maybe. But we
know.
like donations.
Yeah.
And we like people
That's
to spend
it.
money
That's
in the
it.
gift
And
shop.
sometimes when you let them in free, they donate more than it costs for them to get in.
Then the following week is Julie Reed, and this is a long title: "A Law That Shall Embrace Very Adventurous Circumstances." War of 1812 pensions and the origins of the Cherokee. I can't look up national social provisions.
What in the world does that mean?
Well,
That's a good title.
Julie's a professor at UT. She's actually on sabbatical, or been on sabbatical, working on writing a book. And basically, this is kind of covering a lot of what she's talking about. It's the there's Cherokees that served during the War of 1812, and as a result of that, some of them, like with the state of North Carolina, are almost quasi United States citizens, or well, they're looked at as quasi North Carolina citizens, and so in that instance, the federal government couldn't touch those folks. In other places, they're not.
Like here,
Yeah.
you were War of 1812. Here, you might not have got a pension, or may have not gotten the land that you had been promised.
Well,
sometimes,
and so that's
sometimes not.
Right.
I could not. Maybe she could answer that question for me.
I think it tended on being what state you were in and how things developed.
Yes,
Um,
but the War of 1812 would give monetary prizes for your service, and they would also, in some cases, give small land for service.
and see, that happened in North Carolina, and there were Cherokees that did not have to be removed because
They
of
were
that.
War of 1812 soldiers. Okay, do we have a call?
Yes.
Okay, go
Good
ahead.
morning, live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning, Ron and Debbie and the guest.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's Bob Gill.
Hey, Bob, I still holding on to these tickets for you.
Okay, all right.
I'm going to sell this. I'm going to sell this trading card on eBay if you don't come and get it soon.
I'm coming to get it, Dave.
Okay.
I've got a question for him and you and Ron. Y'all may know this. I want to know what that lady's name is. You can text it to me, Deb. I want to know what the Cherokee lady's name is that's in charge of the removal park over at Birchwood.
Well, I don't know which person you're talking about, but Shirley Lawrence is really involved in that and probably can answer any questions that you have.
And that's operated by Meigs County government. So you could
It's a
actually
Meigs County park.
You could actually call the.
I know that, but there is a Cherokee lady.
No.
She's a full-blooded Cherokee Indian that does the yes and no for some of the things that go on over there at that park. And I want to get in touch with her and talk to her.
I have no idea who you're talking about. Which is so you might need to call Meigs County and ask them.
Shirley Lawrence is
or
real
just
involved in it.
just call the park over there. I believe they're open like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, or Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And just ask them, because the lady that's actually hired by Meigs County is not Cherokee.
Oh, no, Nancy's
Nancy, yeah.
No, Nancy, and she's an employee of, I know her.
No, I don't. Bob, I just haven't been around over there in person recently much, and so whoever it is, I don't know.
Okay.
We can find out for you. We'll get you some information.
Okay, I appreciate it.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Thanks. I have no idea.
And last but not least on this is Hobart Akins. Hobart
Hobart.
Hobart.
It's the
AJ.
construction of the old fort on Middle Tennessee's eastern Highland Rim. And tell us what that is briefly.
Well, basically that's Hobart was he's a park ranger at Fort Loudon, and Hobart comes from the old stone fort that's over there. And basically, what I asked him, it's one of those things that I was not that familiar with, who and what and that site, and so that's what he'll be talking about is the old stone fort. The people,
In Murfreesboro?
Yeah, I guess that's
kind of.
south.
To me, it's
there.
Murfreesboro. I mean, you get to it. If you get to Murfreesboro, you can find it. How's
Yeah, I
that?
know you get off the interstate and just drive for a while.
So every
Yeah, so
Sunday
it's-
for the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks, I guess it is.
4
Four
weeks.
more weeks.
Yeah.
You can go and hear these lectures free, 2 to 3. If you're involved in like Cherokee history or just like history, these are great things to do tomorrow. And it also says, if it's icing and snow, they may not have these. Probably won't have those and we've had a lot of that recently.
One of the best things that the folks can do is if they Facebook is go to Sequoia Birthplace Museum on Facebook.
Right.
Like us, and we post. That's how we kind of get in touch with everybody and let them know that it's something. Bad weather. Of course, last 3 weeks we've had bad weather, and we've
Yes.
actually Hobart was our first lecture, and we had to cancel him because of the bad weather.
So just check. Now, for you who want to go see it, if you know where Fort Loudon Park is, you take a left when you turn on that road, and if you want to go to the Sequoia Birthplace Museum, just stay on that road and then take a right down the road a mile, 2 miles.
Well, actually, it's not less than that.
Oh, is it?
We share an island. Fort Loudon and Sequoia Birthplace Museum, when they created Telco Lake, it formed an island. And so the fort is, as the crow flies, about 1.5 miles from Sequoia Birthplace. But we're on the same island. You come to Von Orr, you turn on to 360, and you'll cross over a bridge, and you come onto the island, and you're there. You'll find both Fort Loudon and Sequoia Birthplace.
I didn't realize.
And
it was
it's a
an
nice
island.
little day. It's a nice little day
Yeah,
to
you
drive
can do
up
both,
there.
and then there are other areas to drive through there, and just drive along the edge of the river up through there.
Chota, Tanassie's up
Yeah.
north of us, 12 miles.
Yes. Go ahead, caller. You live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hi there, this is Rebel Yell. I sure do appreciate y'all's show here.
Well, thank you, sir.
And I had a question I asked, I guess it was last week, week before, about a possible blockhouse on the ridge here in South Cleveland. I'm on South Lee and Circle Drive, and my ridge above here, we found stacked rocks that would resemble a blockhouse of sorts. I've got an old 1864 map which shows the access road up the front of it, and that would be perfect for observing railroads coming and going into Cleveland from Chattanooga or from East Tennessee. And I'm wondering if you have any confirmation on that.
Well,
we were going to go look at it, but
the weather's been crazy.
yeah, every time we were out, there was ice up that road.
Yeah, and it's like one of the worst roads in the county. Do you actually own that piece of property?
I own from the corner of Circle Drive and Lee Highway up the hill on Circle Drive. At one time, my kinfolks were all over this part of the.
I just don't want to go trespassing on somebody else's property. Is what I'm getting at.
No, I've got access to this land.
Okay,
My
okay.
kinfolk is on the opposite side of the road, and I've got.
When we go
access.
off the air today, I want you to call me, and we'll exchange phone numbers, and we'll work on this. But I will tell you, there's another rock building in that community that if you had come down off of that hill and into the valley there where Blythewood Farms is located, on the old J. Mac Hall, there's they said it was a storage area for food, but it looked much older than Mr. Hall would have had property there. Do you know which building I'm talking about?
I'm familiar with the location. I'm a little farther, I guess you might say, southeast. But these are definitely stacked rocks. I know that according to the military maps of the time, there was some signal location there. And
I have no problem with that. I have no problem with that, and I would really like to see it, because if it's truly what you think it is, we need to make sure that it's protected. But the building I'm talking about, if you just come down into the valley, almost to the Candies Creek Bridge down there, it's on Mr. Rogers' property, and it's right at the end of his driveway. And the first time I saw it on that busy road, I put my car in reversed and backed up to look at it. So that should tell you something.
How big a building do you think this would have been? I mean, do you have any time?
I'm sorry, say it again.
How big would this building been? The dimensions of it.
I'm thinking, well, there's two of them, but each one of them would have been at least a 20 by 40, maybe. I'm thinking possibly stables, possibly barracks, that sort of thing.
That's a lot bigger than the block building down.
Oh yeah,
the other one is.
Mm.
Yeah, that's
see, I
very
was thinking
interesting.
it was just enough for like a sentry to be in, or somebody to.
That's interesting.
No, this was,
That might have been barracks or something, huh? Well, we just need to get.
Expect a signal, maybe a platoon or something sized with wagons and accoutrements. Of course.
Okay.
Well, and
We need
also
to we need to work on this.
that building could have been there, and that's something they just used because I would think usually in the Civil War they would build a wood structure very, very quickly.
So it may have been there and they used it.
I don't think they would took time to stack
Wow.
rock, so it could be something older than that. We don't know. It's just something to think about.
But we need to work on that, and I can get in touch with Middle Tennessee State University, and the next time that Dr. West comes over here to look at all this wonderful stuff in Charleston, well, I'll just take him by the hand and drag him down to Payne Gap.
Right. Well, that sounds great. I've got some Cherokee in me. Great grandmother. She was with the. She got to pass, I guess you could say.
Because she was married to a white man, probably.
Exactly, and that's how I became down the road. So I'm proud of that. And this Bradley County is sacred Cherokee land, and
Absolutely.
we need to appreciate that.
Well, we're starting that, and Charleston started the wave, and here in a few months or a few years, we're going to have a great display in Charleston.
Fantastic. I look forward to that.
Call me. We need to get to work on this.
Yeah, just listen to when we go off the air here and just give us a call then.
I will do it.
Thank you, dear.
Thank you so much
Bye-bye.
for calling us. Bye-bye.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big building.
And he said there are two
Yeah,
possible.
yeah.
That is big.
Well, we need to get somebody with more expert eyes than mine in here to look at it
And
then.
we got another call here. Hey, go ahead, caller. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hello, this is Pat Gear.
Hey, Pat, how are you?
buddy?
Pretty good. That last caller, I'd be interested in that rock structure if it had right angles.
I have no idea. But
If to have right angles in it, then that thing might be like one of these rock walls erected by the ancient Indians.
yeah, it may be. And that's why I said that I need to get somebody here with some expert eyes to look at it, and I can arrange that. And I appreciate, Pat, you sending me all that stuff on the Candies Creek mission.
I'd like to ask your guest,
Go ahead.
does he have the genealogy of George Gist?
There's
Married into the Gist family in what would be Knoxville. It is back in the days is North Carolina. They married a John Gist and a Benjamin Gist. Now, and I think that was George Gist's uncles. I don't have any proof there. I tried to research this before there was the internet. Got nowhere.
And then now when you have the internet, you have to be careful because it may be somebody's imagination.
Yeah, I found two different websites that have genealogy for George Gist, and one site has him with 7 children, another website has him with 8 children. There again, part of this genealogy, when you get into doing 1800 back in the 1700s, you end up with 4 multiple names, and that adds to some of the confusion. And it's even like when you're doing genealogy on English or Scots, a lot of times you'll have 3 or 4 generations, and there'll be James, John, George,
And William.
and William, and so for 3 generations, so you get the William son confused with the uncle, and so So it's kind of the same thing. I know the Gist family has genealogies. There's a book I've gotten from one member of the family. He's done a genealogy. We have a couple of those books at the museum that you can kind of reference. But and that's part of what we're looking at and doing some research is trying to gain or collect more information on the different, on both not only the Cherokee side of George Gist, but his
extended
white European
family,
side, side as well.
Okay.
So the answer is maybe.
Yeah,
I'm thinking that they were all descended from Christopher Gist.
Yes.
Christopher Gist was an Indian agent before. I can't think of his name now, but he was an early Indian agent in North Carolina territory there. And another question: George Gist's mother was named Werda. And I got in the notes, and I don't have nothing to confirm this, that she was also the mother of Bob Bench. Do you have anything about that?
There's several books, and it's supposed to be that I'm not quite clear on this. It's been some time since I read. I've been told I think Bob Bench could be his uncle or could be his brother. So there again, whether it was the generation before or the same generation as Sequoyah.
Well, I need to come visit. That's on my bucket list.
There you go. Well, first pretty day, you need to make it up there because you would really enjoy it.
Yeah, I got a DVD documentary on the Sequoyah. The Sequoyah. I can't think now. My brain went blank.
But of his story of his life?
No, the museum.
Oh, the museum.
Yeah, they went all through it there, showing everything. It's pretty good stuff, but this is like 20 years old now.
Oh, okay. That would have been before I got there then.
Charlie looked kind of surprised.
Yeah,
he didn't know that would existed.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Pat.
All right.
Bye-bye, dear.
Thank you.
Let me ask about the
Gist relative. That's pretty unique, isn't it?
Yeah.
It seemed like what he's saying is that his family's from that area. Sort of makes sense.
Yeah. Well, you're in that family somewhere, but it's just hard to hook your
never
wagon
know.
up sometimes.
I went and found my family and found horse thieves, so I stopped. Now go ahead, Charlie. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hi, Ron. This is Brenda.
Hey,
Brenda. Where have you been?
I've just been sick. I'm just kind of up and down, and then some days I just listen.
Yeah.
But I've got a question I've been wanting to ask for a long time, but I want to say first that I'm really enjoying your program.
Thank you.
And this is a genealogy question more so than anything else, but my daddy told me a long time ago that we were Scotch-Irish, and I was wondering if there really is such a thing as Scotch-Irish.
It's not. That's kind of a bad term. It tends to make you think you're part Scottish, part Irish.
Right.
And using my family as the typical
Scott-Irish family.
the best term is an Ulster Scot. This is what's actually developed some years ago, probably 20 years ago, or maybe, it's been around. But they're using the term Ulster Scot. Ulster is Northern Ireland. What happens is, as I mentioned, like with my family, they leave Scotland around somewhere in the 1500s, and it's about 3 generations. What's happening is the English have taken over Ulster, Northern Ireland, and they're wanting to get as many Protestants in Northern Ireland, their people, to defend it and to protect it and to colonize it. And so that's why they're sending all these Scots and English. So they're sending English and Scots over, and they're settling there in Ulster, in Northern Ireland. After about that 3rd generation, those people realized that we could hire the native Irish Catholics. They'll work cheaper than our own people will. And so what happens is you start this period of the Irish were being hired to work the plantations, farm, and so forth. And so what happens is this mass migration starts out of Northern Ireland and ends up coming to the New World. And so, a lot of times as the years tick by, it's like, well, grandfather was from Ireland. Oh, he's Irish. No, he was Scottish. Oh, so he's Scotch-Irish. And so that's kind of how that kind of mutated. If you've got a Catholic, if you're Catholic, more than likely your ancestry is then Irish. This is not a 100% rule, but it's the way to kind of quick and fast to judge this. If your ancestor or you are Catholic, more than likely you're Irish. If you're Protestant, then more than likely you are Scottish or English, or a mixture of both, and no Irish in there.
Mm-hmm. So it was Scottish people living in Ireland.
Correct.
Instead of being related. Right. Okay.
So it's not that
that's the best explanation I've heard of that.
So if you're a true Irishman or you're a true Scot, you wouldn't call it Scot-Irish, would you?
No, typically.
That would be dangerous.
No.
If you live over there.
Over there. I'm trying to remember what I worked in a little town in Scotland for a while, and there was a fellow, they all called him the Irishman, and he would get aggravated with them because they were calling him an Irishman, because he referred to himself as an Ulsterman because he was an Ulster, and he was Protestant, and he had moved back to Scotland. His family had been there for 200 years, I guess.
But they do, don't they? In the areas over there, their curbs are painted orange or blue, and those are sort of
it's a serious place.
Things have gotten a lot better. I can say there was programs that started back in the 70s, I guess, and really took off in the 80s, where they would bring, like here to the United States and other countries around the world, they would bring kids from Ulster, and both Catholic and Protestant, and they would put them Catholic and Protestant together in households. And I think that was one of the things. There was a number of programs that they started trying to get the kids to interact and not continue the violence. And
Brenda, did you have anything else, dear?
No, sorry.
No, I had that question.
Well, there you go. You got an answer, didn't you?
Well, it's a good question, because I was interested in that answer.
I've been looking for an answer to that for a long time and just never had anybody to ask, so I really appreciate it.
Brenda, it's so good to hear from you, dear. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Did the Irish land more towards the North Carolina southern borders because English and Irish necessarily didn't get along as well, and the English landed up north and the Irish
or you just landed where the most opportunity was?
My ancestors came into Maryland and then moved up into Pennsylvania and then moved south. You've got Germans, you've got English. Some are coming into the South and moving north. You've got some that just, there's a whole...
There was no set rules. But Ron's referring to at some point in time, if you Protestant, you usually came into a certain port. And if you were Catholic, you usually came into certain ports. But some of that was you were just trying to get close to your relatives, I think.
Right. And
let's get this call.
You would cluster.
Cluster.
Go ahead, Colin. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
This is Hetty Copeland. My mother is part Indian, and her mother was part Indian. There's Ogles. So there's a lot of Ogles in the Smoky Mountains. And anyway, the little cabin up there, that the first settlers up there in Gatlinburg, ever at that little cabin.
Yes.
My third or fourth grandma.
Mm-hmm. Oh, very interesting. She's talking about the cabin when you go up Airport Road, I believe.
Yeah. That's where the old Baptist church.
And you turn and go to that round hotel on the top, or you go straight ahead and you go to that little cabin. Well, I saw probably
back in our Arrowhead, close to it, and you can go in there and they'll take you a tour through there. And they got the old furniture and everything in there. But they was from, I think, Virginia. I got a big book about it, everything about it. I can't remember, but They come in a covered wagon from Virginia. They're the first settlers in Gatlinburg.
How interesting. Well, I did about 3 backflips at that cabin one day when I went walking in there, and the biggest snake I'd ever seen in person in my life went in front of me, and I invented some kind of new dance.
What? How long ago has that been?
It's probably been in the last 10 years.
Oh, Lord. I've been up there since in the last 10 years.
Well, it was just some snake, and it was a real hot day, and it decided to get under that cool cabin, and it just decided it didn't like all that noise, and it was as scared of me as I was of it. But, whew.
I'm not sure. I think you may have won that battle on the scaredness.
That wasn't what I was going to ask.
Okay, well, what were you going to ask us?
Indians. I want to tell you that my mother was half or a fourth of an Indian.
Yes.
And Ogles. You know the Ogles.
Yes, I'm quite familiar with Ogles. Yes.
Anyway, my grandma was Ogle. But anyway, this is, I read in the paper a good bit ago, they're going to make a movie about the Trail of Tears. Have you heard anything about that?
There's people who are interested in doing that, and it's just an ideal right now. There is nothing in the works or knowing. There are some people trying to get someone from Hollywood to be interested in doing a movie about the Trail of Tears, the romantics and the sadness and all that. And
there's people talking.
It may happen, it may not, but there are going to be a lot of things happening in Charleston, and the Trail of Tears is going to become very well documented, and Charleston, Tennessee is going to get the recognition it deserves, and most likely there'll be some type of at least a historical film made there for any kind of center they put up there.
Would that be in the banner?
Oh yeah. If the big Hollywood movie happens to come, you will hear a lot of it.
Okay, I won't type the line in the line.
Thank you for listening, sweetie, and thank you for calling.
Okay,
bye-bye.
All right, then we're going to take a break here. We'll be back in a few minutes, and time flies when you're having fun here. At the end of the commercials here, we always play a song called Gone Home, and we dedicate that to anyone in our community or your friends or your family that has passed on. It's a song we play every week, so this is for those people who have left us, and so, folks, we'll be back in just a few minutes.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Guns, guns, and more guns. That's right, folks. U.S. Money Shops has just received a large shipment of pre-owned Glock 22s, 23s, and the awesome Beretta 8040D Cougar. These guns are law enforcement trade-ins that start at just $379.99 while supplies last. At U.S. Money Shops, there's no shortage of guns, so if you're looking for a great deal on a newer pre-owned gun, then check us out first.
Buy or sell or apply today, the better way at U.S. Money Shops.
Visit usmoneyshops.com for the location nearest you.
No dealers allowed.
Jackson Catnapper, family owned.
If you're looking for a home, apartment, or office space, Jones Properties provides residential and commercial properties in the heart of the Southeast that will fulfill any need. Plus, Jones Properties is one of the fastest growing firms in the area, which offers you more security. When you're ready for a home, apartment, or a need for commercial office space, it makes sense to call Jones Properties first at 472-4000. Plus, you can get additional information by logging on to the website at www.jonesproperties.biz. Jones Properties is also looking to invest in properties. So if you have a property that you need to sell, call the professional team at Jones Properties first. They'll help you find the perfect property for whatever your needs. Call today 472-4000. And don't forget to keep up with Jones Properties on Facebook.
They've joined the heavenly fold. They're walking the streets of pure gold. They left one by one as their work here was done. Gone home. They have gone home. Gone home. They have gone home. Where'd the old town go?
He said, well, how deep is the river? Well, the river's so deep, you know.
Moved it on north. Where'd the old town go? They moved it on north of here in a shopping mall. Ooh, where'd the old town go? Did my hometown get old, or just me? Did all my friends get old, or just me? Are they all gonna have to be told, or just me?
Hey, welcome back to Old Town Cleveland here on Whoop FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.whoopfm.com. Call us here at 614-5553. We got Charlie Road Armor.
Road Armor.
Road Armor. I almost got it right.
It doesn't look like that. It's why we keep spell it for them.
RHODARMER.
Okay.
Rhode Island and Armor.
I thought it was Road Armor. Road Armor.
Road Armor.
Road Armor. Road Armor. Okay. And he's the director of the Sequoia Birthplace Museum. And we're going to talk about a few other things here. And one is that he plays on a vintage baseball team. Basically, they play under the old rules of baseball, the early days of baseball, before the organization of national baseball leagues and things of this nature. But you know, they're it's very interesting things. And I'll mention once again is if you the Travel Channel has a program called The Booze Traveler, and I'm going to talk about it for two reasons. One is that Deb and I were on the last episode. We recorded in October. We recorded for 7 hours, and they used 3 minutes, but which is true because they went all the way across the state talking, and a great commercial for the state of Tennessee. Unbelievable. You know, they focus on booze.
It was in October, and there were trees that were, I mean, it looked like the most gorgeous, and it is the most gorgeous place.
We went and talked about how moonshining and dirt track racing sort of got its start together. That was a purpose for us being there. And matter of fact, when the Booze Traveler comes on, Deb and I and Jack Maxwell, the host, we start the program. I mean, we're it for the first 3 or 4 minutes, and then they go on and they talk about how then they go to Gatlinburg and they found a bunch of old boys up in the mountains and showed them a real steel, or used to be an operating steel, and they played bluegrass music and drank moonshine around the fire. They went to 3 breweries around town, around the state. There's a company that makes rum in the state of Tennessee out of real molasses, and it's extremely sweet rum. And there's another team place makes some kind of cream and some type of liquor together. And of course, there's other whiskey places beyond Jack Daniels and that. So they go all across the state doing that. But they also showed in the middle of it a good old fashioned baseball league team, and maybe the guys we were talking about.
It's the same guys. Yeah.
They had the 2 teams, and they were dressed in what they would have dressed at. And of course, the main reason was that Jack Maxwell got to play for one of the teams, and he talked about some of the rules, and I'll do that in a minute. But afterwards, they all went and drank beer. So that was the key part
now,
of that.
What's the name of that brewery? Wide Brim, or is that the name of the team?
There's the Highland Rim Distillers.
Okay.
That's one of the teams.
I was close.
They probably one of them wore a tan overalls with big straw hats. Another one had a big N on the front of them,
and that would
it's a red and almost look like a vest. I mean,
that's the Nashville Maroons.
Yeah, that's it.
That was the Nashville Maroons, and then the Highland Rim Distillers.
Okay, so now you play over in Knoxville area, and who do you play for?
I play for the Knoxville Holstons. The Holstons were actually the Confederate veterans.
Right. Okay.
And so they've.
So this was a real team.
Oh yeah, they were real teams. Adam Alfrey is our one of the co-captains. He works at East Tennessee Historical Society there at the museum, and so he and several others have been doing a lot of research on the original teams here in East Tennessee, the playoffs, and so we don't have a clear description of the uniform, and it was kind of just, I guess, dumb luck that our uniform fell into that realm. It's they were supposed to be wearing like dark blue pants or pants with stripes, blue and red, and so we had chosen blue and red for our hats. We wear a white shirt with the K on the front for Knoxville, and so we kind of the one thing in the description is there was supposed to be a star on the hat, and so we're actually getting new hats. I'll pick mine up tomorrow. We're going to do a photo shoot tomorrow afternoon with our new hats.
How many teams are in your league now?
3 years ago, it started with two guys who had seen vintage baseball games and said, hey, we want to do that. Well, they came back to Nashville. Somehow they found each other and said, let's start a vintage baseball team. And then they went, well, then who do we play? So one of them started a team in Nashville. The other started one in Franklin, Tennessee. And they started alternating, playing each other every 2 weeks. That was 3 years ago. Last year, there was 8 teams. Formed. So it was 8, 9, 6. I think it was 8 teams formed last year. The Holstons. We were here in Knoxville. There was in Harriman were the Dry Town Boys. We were the two furthest east. There were, I guess, maybe the rest of the teams were formed in and around Nashville. This year we have a team in Chattanooga that's formed. We have a new team, the Dry Town Boys, kind of reorganized, and so they're forming the Mechanics. And so we'll have, I guess it's 8 teams again this year. You can visit to find out more about the whole thing, our schedules, everything that's going on. It's got one of the best websites I've had the experience to play with in the last little bit, but you can visit Tennessee Vintage Baseball. You can Google it, Tennessee Vintage Baseball, and that website has the schedule for the games. It has our rules that we play by. They're different.
Talk about those rules a little bit.
Will you go all the way to Nashville and play?
Yes, we'll do like 2 or 3 road trips where we go to Nashville and we'll play out at. Some of them play at Carrington Plantation. Some play at Sam Davis Plantation.
Yeah.
One team plays down in Bicentennial Mall there in Nashville.
Public invited?
Yes. The games are always free.
Good price, isn't it?
Yes, awesome price.
Oh, we've got to go.
We have generally we have like we play at Ramsey House there in Knoxville. Ramsey House actually handles the concessions, so there's hot dogs, peanuts.
I think we went there, Ron, and it was closed.
Everybody out there listening said they had hot dogs. I said, well, Ron's going to be there then.
Oh, yeah.
You have to bring your own hot slaw, Ron.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So one of the coolest things, I mean, I've been involved with history all my life and different reenactments, battles, political thing. But one of the things that I had the most fun last year, the Three Rivers Rambler, the train out of Knoxville, actually ran several of our home games. They ran from Knoxville out to Ramsey House, so you could ride out on a cold train. And you could go watch an 1864 baseball game on a plantation. Go back, load on the train, and ride back in.
My kind of trip.
It was incredible. I mean, the experience. They had kind of the train folks had told kids, you need to go up and talk to the baseball guys, ask them for their autograph. Had several kids come up and like, who are you? And I was like, I'm Grape Shot Road Armor.
Grape Shot.
So I was like, would you sign our flyer or our program? So, me and several of my other buddies that were on the train, signing autographs and talking about vintage baseball to, these young fellows that were just all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed about it.
Now, you are a catcher, right, normally?
I play – my favorite position's catcher. So
okay, now tell us about all your padding and your mask and everything that you use.
Absolutely nothing.
It's you.
Bare hands.
And no catcher's mitt.
No catcher's mitt. In 1860, we play 1864 rules. In the 1864, you played. There were no gloves. Gloves actually developed in the late 1800s, 1880s, 1890s. It originated with a Civil War veteran who had came back, and a young boy during the war who was living up in New York, and he was throwing oyster shells and realized that if he threw them a certain way, they would dive or turn to the right or go to the left. And so he started experimenting with the baseball in trying to pitch curve balls and different things like that. And so it was a Civil War veteran who became his hind catcher that as they played and he got to where he could throw the ball and do these curves and drop balls and all this kind of thing, the hind catcher was having to catch the ball more. And so it was hurting his hands. And so what he did is he took a pair of work gloves, cut the fingers out, and he made the first glove or gloves. And so that's something that didn't come in, though, until the late 1880s.
Now, this is underhand slow pitch baseball. Would that be a good way to describe it?
Yeah. Well, the pitcher is supposed to present the ball to the striker. The striker is, of course, the batter. And it was not about like our modern baseball where the pitcher is burning them in and the catcher's catching them and it's two guys playing ball, and I'll be honest, I'm not a sports person and I played Little League and that's about it. To me, I'd rather do other things.
It's not the pitcher who tries to paint the plate out on the outside corner and have it down low and to the left. And now the idea with the pitcher is to get it to the plate so the batter can hit the ball.
Exactly.
You want the batter to hit the ball.
Exactly. The pitcher is to pitch it underhanded, and it's to be released below the belt. The striker can stand there, and he can stand there all day and not take a swing.
So there are no strikeout.
He no matter if it's a perfect pitch and he doesn't strike at it, there's no strike.
Okay. If he misses it.
The only strike, if he swings and misses, that's a strike. If he swings and clips the ball and it's fouled, it's not a strike. So he could foul the ball all day long, never be out. He could stand there all day long. Generally, the arbiter, that is the umpire, the arbiter would then actually step in and say, "Sir, you need to strike," because to keep this thing going. But generally, most everyone takes the plate and within 3-4 pitches, they strike. And so the point is that it's the garden, which let's see. A little rusty here since last year. The garden is the infield. I can't remember the outfield, but the game is played by in the field. Catch the ball. Now, since it's barehanded, 1864 rules, you're allowed to catch the ball on the first bounce, and the striker would be out. If the ball bounces and you catch it and the striker's out, but you have a runner, if he's running, he can take off, and if you catch it on the first bounce, he does not have to go back and tag up. If you catch the ball on the fly, then the runner has to go back and tag up before he can go advance.
Those outfielders got it tough. If the ball pops up pretty good, that ball it's not a soft.
It's not a softball.
Someone's making these special older balls for you, right?
Right. I think they have these things made. I think maybe in China. We tend to get a whole like case of them to use as practice balls, and then we get a baseball for each game. 1864 rules. The ball it has to be a brand new ball, so it's hard. When you get it, it's hard. It softens up a little bit over time. The ball I brought with me today, this is actually a practice ball. It's a little bit larger than a modern softball, or excuse me, it's a little bit larger than a modern baseball. It's a little bit smaller than a modern softball. So
and the stitching on it's different.
It's all one piece of leather, and if you notice, like a modern baseball is two pieces sewn together, whereas this is one piece that is stitched up.
And it has that smooth, one end of it's smooth, has no stitches. Is that where they would hold it to pitch it, or is that just, who knows?
The stitches cross in the X up here. When a regular baseball, there's a
like
leather goes in between it.
Yeah. Right, it's two pieces.
Yes,
whereas,
definitely, yeah.
And so it's like a game ball it starts off, and for several innings, I mean, even through the game, if it's a moist, wet day, they soften up. But other than that, they're pretty hard all the way through the game.
If you've ever thrown a modern baseball, this does not feel like a modern baseball. It has a different grip to when you place your fingers out to throw a curveball. You would feel the lacing there, but it doesn't do that on this one. It's sort of a little different. Yeah, it's different.
Yeah.
But you're now if you're in left field and the runner's coming home, you got to catch that ball coming from left field, a big hard throw.
Yeah.
Or do you say, well, the heck with this, let him score?
Well, it depends on the statistic wise. More than likely, the team is the person's going to catch it on the first bounce because it's
easier on the hands.
It's a lot easier on the hands. But we have a couple of guys on our team that apparently have those mega hands. They just reach out and snatch it out of the air. And I've seen a couple of our guys that just a line drive, crack right straight down, and bam, they'll just grab it out of the air. I'm not that crazy.
You need your fingers for work.
What about the play coming home? Do you have sliding and everything? Because you play on grass, don't you?
Yes, there's no dirt field. Right. It's Grass. The actual layout is the same as a modern field. Was it 90 feet from home plate to first and second, third, and then back? It's 90 feet in between the bases.
60 to the pitcher's mound?
I'm thinking it's around 45, 40. Okay. It's not quite as far back.
Okay.
So we play by gentlemen's rules. So there's no stealing of bases. That's bad form. That's bad etiquette. No cussing, no spitting.
No stealing bases. It's bad etiquette.
It's bad etiquette.
No cussing or
spitting.
No cussing, no spitting.
Those rules apply most anywhere.
How do you get to a baseball game without spitting once?
Well, unfortunately, I quit chewing tobacco, so I don't have that problem anymore.
You know, when you're in middle school, the boys stand around outside and practice spitting. Have you ever noticed? Have you ever seen that? A bunch of 12-year-old boys are standing out there, and every one of them go, and they're not chewing anything. You have to learn to spit properly.
Well, we're 40 and 50-year-olds, and we're kind of worried about the aching bones and joints.
But do you get down in the squat? Do you have to squat down to do this, or do you stand up back as a catcher?
I bend my knees, and kind of just I get into a position, and I back up far enough that generally the ball comes in, hits the ground, and bounces into my hand.
Okay.
I've actually hand catched a couple of games, like all the way through, and my hands, I can barely close them by the end of the game.
I'd be worried about my knees if I had to go down into that complete, like a catcher does now.
Oh no, we don't go down that far.
No, that would kill me.
Yeah.
Well, as a matter of fact, I'd go down one time, then the rest of the day I'd be there, and you'd have to call me a whambulance.
Yeah.
But
that is so interesting.
And what about foul balls? Foul is it catching air, or a bounce? Is it an out?
If it's caught, like if they tip the ball, and that's one of the things. A couple of games, I was right there. They would tip the ball, I'd snatch it just right out of the air, and generally every time I did it, I would look at the ball like, wow, I didn't know I could do that. And so, when that happens, if you tip the ball, that's an out. If you pop it up in the air, the catcher or the first base or whoever, the pitcher, runs out, grabs it, catches it on the first bounce, or catches it in the air, that's out. If it just fouls out, it's not a strike. It doesn't count. You have to be very attentive. You've got to watch where the ball hits. Several times you'll strike, hit the ball. It may go right down and land right in front of plate, and then roll out. Okay, it lands in play. It's an active ball, so you've got to take off running immediately. So you have to watch where it is. If it hits on the inside the third or the first base, but rolls or bounces out, it's active. So you've got to go after it.
In modern day baseball, it has passed the base to be inbounds.
Correct.
Right.
I think so.
Let's get this call.
Are they home runs?
I want to be on that train.
Home runs?
They don't like home runs. That's ungentlemanly.
Oh,
So-
no bragging, no cussing, no spitting. Okay.
So there are home runs.
How
that are
baseball
rare.
has changed.
Oh, yes.
Now, is there beer involved afterward, like they said on the Booth
I
Traveler?
wouldn't know.
Okay.
Could be.
We're family oriented.
Some people would, but not there with the kids.
No, it's family oriented.
Yeah, you don't drink at the game. You go to the bar somewhere else later. Make sure. Go ahead, caller. You're live.
Yeah, I'm wondering why we can't pick you up anymore. We can barely hear you, just a lot of static. All the other stations are coming in.
Where are you, darling?
And it was this way last week.
Where are you at?
We're in McDonald.
It just may be the cloud cover.
Sometime, honestly, and you, one thing about the south end of Bradley County, our signal is trimmed some as it goes down towards Hamilton County, because there's another station in Hamilton County that has the same type frequency. So basically, we go from here more north than we would south. And the weather, it could be just the weather conditions, believe it or not.
Because we've been picking you up fine, just as clear as any other station.
We will make a note about that, and most likely, I think it's more weather related. And like I say, this is a very low powered station.
Yeah.
I mean, after you get out of the parking lot, it starts
But we're
getting
sorry
weak.
that you're missing us.
Yeah, I am. Well, we love to hear y'all, and we've got a good radio, Bose Radio, so, I mean, all the other stations are coming in
Yeah.
fine, and y'all did until last week. We couldn't get you.
It could be the way. There could be ice on our antenna, and it hadn't melted off yet. And
One ice cube will take us out.
or there's a mouse camping on the antenna, and that blocked all our signal. I don't know.
Well, I hope it'll get straightened out.
Well, I'll make a note to the station manager to see if there's any technical problems.
Or anything that they can do.
We don't know of any, but thank you for letting us know.
Okay.
And just turn it up real loud and get close.
It's the static's awful, I'm sure. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
It's like the older, the more antique-y the radio, especially if it still has an old-fashioned little wire on it you can use as an antenna. That's what we use at our house. I have a thumbtack in the wall with the antenna stuck to it.
And if you have a problem, go to the internet all the way at www.whoopfm.com, and you can not only hear us, you can see us, and there's a chat room there where you can actually send Deb messages there. We got another caller here. Go ahead, caller. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Yeah, bud.
Hey,
I've enjoyed this morning.
have you? Well, good.
I mean, I've learned things from you, from Debbie, because see, I don't have any history, Ronnie. My grandparents was all deceased before I was ever born. So I want to know where the trio tears started from.
Oh,
Well,
that's kind of hard.
The answer the Cherokee gives you wherever you lived, if you were an Indian, you lived in a hut, that's where the Trail of Tears began. But basically, all the orders for the Trail of Tears started from Charleston, Tennessee, which they called Fort Cass.
Oh.
So if they were, there were people left from Alabama and some in Georgia, although they were pretty well out of Georgia by then, but all over Tennessee or parts of Tennessee, and then some in Alabama. And the orders come from General Scott, who was based at Fort Cass in Charleston, Tennessee, and then that's where they brought all the Indians in this area up to Charleston, and that's where they sort of forced removal. It was they come and got them at gunpoint. Some people had been if you wanted to leave, you could have left anytime you wanted to. They told you to get
There
out
was
here.
very few people that were, removed by gunpoint, right, Charlie?
Well,
we just don't know. It's a mixture.
There's certain areas that were. For instance, most Cherokee knew when they needed to pack up and leave. And so when you go from accounts down in Georgia, that's where it's bayonets, fixed guns, and it's like you're leaving now. But see, as the removal progressed, as you get up into North Carolina, for instance, the soldiers there near Brasstown, they actually went on the morning that they were to be rounding up the Cherokee. They went out, they left their little camp, they go and they get to the Cherokee homes. There's no Cherokee. They're gone. Well, they come back down to their camp. Right across from where their camp was where the Cherokee church was. When they get back down to their camp, all the Cherokee had went and gathered at their church, and they were waiting there on the soldiers so that they could leave together as a community. And so there's certain places that the Cherokee knew what was coming, and they had packed and they went as a group, as a community. And there were certainly other places like down in Georgia that there were.
It was much more violent in Georgia.
And Georgia had basically taken over Cherokee land against the law. The Supreme Court actually ruled that Georgia could not do that. But the president of the United States at that time, it's the only time a president has never enforced the Supreme Court ruling. Mm-hmm. And he did not send troops down to move Georgia out. And basically, he just let Georgia take over.
Right.
And for that reason, the Indians didn't like Andrew Jackson.
Well, it was the perfect storm. The governor of Georgia at the time and Andrew Jackson, it all came together. There had been talk of removing the Cherokee and the other Indians in the natives in the East for years. It actually goes back to Thomas Jefferson, who talked about removing the natives west of the Mississippi, and the whites would keep everything east of the Mississippi, and everybody to live happily ever after. And so that comes up all through all these different presidents. It's just the perfect storm that happens when.
Right.
Well, what part of Georgia was they at?
Well, at one time they had all of Georgia.
Well, the Cherokee, you have the Cherokee in the north part of Georgia, northwest part, and then you have, this is the other part that affects Georgia, is you have the Creek in the south. So the Creek are controlling the south. The Cherokee are to the north. They're sovereign nations. You have this governor who is very frustrated about the fact he has all this land that he cannot control in his state that are sovereign nations, and they deal with the president and the United States government, not the state of Tennessee, not the state of Georgia. And so that's where it begins to mushroom from.
The Cherokee Nation one time was Kentucky, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina,
Alabama.
Georgia, Alabama. I mean, it was 7 states down here that the Cherokees or other Indians like the Creeks and what else was the...
Well, the Cherokee were the largest tribe in the East at the time Europeans, when the Spanish showed up. They were the largest group in the East.
Well, what was was it Trail of Tears come across a Lookout Mountain or Summers in that vicinity?
That what they was about 4 or 5 different tracks going out to Oklahoma.
Correct.
And they all different places. Deb researched something called the Bell Route, which left Charleston and came down through Cleveland and went through Ottawa and out because they went because they were people who supported the Ridge group, and they didn't want to be with the other people. Ridge was one of the people who signed the agreement, which most Cherokee said he couldn't do.
Did they go through Red Clay?
They actually had a council at Red Clay.
That was the last official meeting place of the Cherokee Nation in the East here.
The reason they met at Red Clay is it had been made against the law for them to meet in Georgia. So they came right across the line and met there at the Council Springs. And the Georgia military was just on the other side of the line staring at them.
Well, actually, they crossed the line and arrested Reverend Wooster.
Absolutely.
They violated. This is one of the most interesting things to study because there is some blatant just thumb nosing at Constitution and at the Supreme Court and the United States law. I mean, it's interesting, and you have these, the things that the Cherokee are going through. You have Reverend Wooster, who he and it was a group of ministers. Basically, Reverend Wooster and one other actually agreed to, we're not going to sign anything. We're not going, and it was Reverend Wooster that his case that pushed into the Supreme Court because they had him in prison because he wouldn't sign an oath of allegiance to the governor of Georgia. All white men in the Cherokee Nation had to sign allegiance to the governor of the state of Georgia.
They also came over into Bradley County now, and arrested John Ross and Scott Key. What's his name? Is that who it was?
I think.
And Judge, what's the judge down Dalton Pike?
Not Martin. He wasn't arrested.
Wasn't he arrested and they seized all the records?
No, they took the records.
They took all the records
from his house and took it to Charleston.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a big story.
And
it's a big story that went on for decades. You know, a lot of people think, well, it's something that happened in 18 months. Well, no, it happened in 25 years.
Oh, yes.
Bradley County, or the Trail of Tears' final nail was here in Bradley County. This is where it happened, but it had been happening for 30 years.
Right.
You know, there had been Cherokees that had been moved out, and you didn't have to really leave your land. You didn't have to go on the Trail of Tears. You just couldn't live on your land anymore. You didn't have you had nowhere to live. So, but there's multiple stories. You could study this forever. I know Deb has taken a big major course from the Cherokee Nation there. It was the
Cherokee history course.
Well, one group, just to mention, you can go to Red Clay State Historic Area. You can visit Sequoia Birthplace Museum. Both sites, we are hubs in the Trail of Tears. I'm not sure about Red Clay, but I know at Sequoia Birthplace, for instance, today I brought the brochure for the National Trail of Tears historic trail, which is the National Park Service actually administrates this, and it covers the whole system from the doors, the homes of every single Cherokee that's rounded up, brought to these holding pens, then eventually start and go on the different trails, the different routes out to the Indian Territory, what will become Oklahoma. Each of those states has a chapter of the Trail of Tears Association. Tennessee has a very active Trail of Tears Association.
I believe they're having a meeting next week.
Yes.
In Middle Tennessee.
I don't have that information.
Well, I'll tell you what, I want to thank you for that because, like I said, I never saw none of my grandparents or nothing.
Well, it's just a really sad story that we can't let it fade away. We need to remember what was done.
Oh, well, I appreciate you.
All righty. Well, thank you.
If you want to learn about history, listen to Old Town Cleveland every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, and we'll talk about something. And let me ask you a question. How's your hip feeling?
How's my
hip?
Oh, honey, I won't never get over this. I went to 3 doctors. I've had 3 ultrasounds. My foot right now is swollen.
We're going to play just a swinging for you anyway.
Did you try that cure that I mentioned?
Moonshine.
That what?
Did you try the cure I mentioned?
No, my neighbor lives behind me. He drinks that, but he didn't offer me none.
I told her to drink a little Jack Daniels. She may not cure her, but she would forget she's hurting.
Thank you, darling.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You're a pistol without the bullet.
Pistol without the bullet.
We'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Oh, Lordy.
Oh,
I love it.
We have a lot of fun. The Trail of Tears is just an unbelievable story. And, Jack Walker, if you know where Walmart is in town, that was the Jack Walker farm. And a lot of what he did, he was murdered here. And they were going to try the 2 guys that killed him up in McMinn County. And their attorney argued is you can't prosecute somebody that something happened in the Cherokee Nation. That wasn't Tennessee. They were trying to try them in a Tennessee court. So it was thrown out, and it went to the Tennessee Supreme Court, and the judge there, which was Andrew Jackson's friend, ruled
Boy,
that
he's a snake in the woods.
ruled
isn't
that they could do it because the Cherokee Nation was a conquered nation, and the Trail of Tears began soon after that.
Where is the National Trail of Tears meeting this year, Charlie? Do you remember?
It's at Cape Girardeau, at the
Missouri?
Drury Lodge in Cape Girardeau,
Missouri.
Oh.
Not too far.
Every state that the trail went through has a chapter, and
This year's meeting was in October in Memphis, and Ron and I were in Vicksburg. Is the reason I didn't get to go.
Let's get this caller. Hey,
Okay.
go ahead, caller.
Well, this is Bob Cash.
Oh my gosh, Bob! Did you decide your hip was hurting so you could get you a little Jack Daniels today?
Oh, yeah. That's good for what I use here.
You probably got a knee hurting and an ankle and a couple thumbs too, right?
Or he's feeling no pain at 11:45 in the morning.
Well, look at here now. Talking about that baseball, do you think Red ever played baseball?
No, I don't know. She may have cleaned out the cornfield where they could play it, though.
Well, she might have.
Well, she cleaned out the cornfield to make other things with it, but, after they cleaned out the cornfield, they played baseball in there.
She was the barmaid after the game, served the beer.
Hey, Ron, what's your daughter's name?
Ashley.
That's right. Ashley was over at my house yesterday.
Yeah, I think she was trying to confirm that Ron Moore was her daddy.
Said no. But anyway.
So
she
you
does
had-
home health.
So you had to put up with my daughter yesterday?
Yeah, she works for one of those healthcare
Yes.
health folks, and she certainly helped my sister Sharon yesterday.
Well, great.
Exercises. She helped her give her a shower, and we appreciate her so much.
She does good work.
She's going to have a new baby here in April.
Yeah, she is a fine lady. She sure is.
Yeah, she sure is.
I believe she gets her good lunch from Debbie.
There you
Yeah,
go.
but her you know where she got the brains from.
Oh.
Debbie. From Debbie, too.
Okay, guys, I'm going to enjoy the rest of your show.
All right, thanks.
I'll talk to you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. What else, Charlie?
Wait, and baseball, any other different rules? We got to off on the chair. But,
I'm going to get on that train.
oh, I am, too.
It's one. I tell you, all the history things I've ever done, and the experience is just you're in a vintage baseball. You can smell the coal coming out. The coal smoke coming off the
Now,
engine.
do we bring our own chair?
You do need to bring your own chair. If you ride the train, they do. The Ramsey House has gotten some tents to kind of create some shade for the folks that ride the train. And if you drive, you might want to bring some lawn chairs. You can bring your own little tent and set up. We have people that show up and do their own tailgate. They'll be we'll be playing a number of double headers, so there'll be 2 games each day.
Wow, that's great.
Each Sunday, and you can, as I mentioned, visit Tennessee Vintage Baseball on the website or their website, and you can see all the games. There's going to be games down in the Chattanooga team's going to be playing.
Oh, great! So
at
the
the
Chattanooga team's new.
Yeah, the Chattanooga team's new this year, and they're going to be playing at the 6th Cavalry Museum. That's where they're going to. They found them. They looked at several.
That's over
sites.
in Chickamauga, actually.
In Chickamauga,
right
yes.
across the line. Yeah.
So you could go down and see the battlefield and see the film there at the little museum. You could see the 6th Cavalry Museum and watch the baseball game.
And I've been wanting to go to the 6th Cavalry Museum. That's on my bucket list. And so finally, I'm going to get to go play a game, but I'm going to take the time to get there early to check.
Go ahead, caller.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, this is RD.
Hey, RD. What's up, buddy?
Oh, she's been dealing with that flu for a couple weeks.
Oh, gosh, isn't it awful?
But now I'm pretty interested in the baseball that you're talking about. That'd be cool if we could get a Cleveland team up. If you take broke down old telephone man, I might be interested in getting out to try to get a heart attack or something.
We've got a couple of guys. I think our oldest one is 74. I believe.
I love it.
All right.
And if you visit the website,
I got it wrote down.
You'll see there's all different ages. That's one of the things that the league has said, that you got to have like a minimum age. The average age has to be like 30-something, 38 or 30, because what they didn't want to have teams created that were like all 18-year-old high school or college baseball players, and they go out there and just massacre
And
everybody.
it might be like we used to take
How
our
long-
kids to see the Lookouts because it was much more entertaining baseball than
How
to
much
go
time do you
to
have
the
to
big
run?
teams.
How much time do you have to run from home plate to first?
Well,
And Roy take his chair with
Is
him.
there a time limit there?
Yeah. If
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, RD. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, one of the things, you being in your capacity there, have you ever heard of an author named Alan W. Eckert?
Yes.
Okay, he wrote the Frontiersman, Dark and Bloody Ground.
One of my favorite authors. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I've got an original first edition of the Frontiersman. Actually, a very expensive, rare book. But do you recall the portion in there where they talk about Andrew Jackson not being eligible to have been elected president because he was actually born on a ship at sea that had set sail from Scotland? And due to maritime law, if you're born like that, you are a citizen of the point of departure. You have not touched. And Eckert actually references a lot of footnotes, in his footnotes, documentation, affidavits, things like that. But then when Jackson, due to his exploits and popularity, it looked like he was going to get more and more politically involved. They actually changed his story of his birth to where he was born at port and had set foot in the United States. I've always, in fact, you're the first person I've ever heard who's ever heard of the author or read the book.
Oh.
Well, hey, I have not heard that story.
I can see the wheels turning. Charlie's going to research that.
I'll go look at my copy at the house on the shelf right when I get home.
Very good.
I don't remember that in his book, but that's
in there. It's in the Frontiersman. The Frontiersman, the first one he read. But he goes. The affidavits are, all the reference material is right there. He gives some pretty good footnotes, of course, as you know.
Oh, Eckert is incredible on his footnotes. He's writing a historical novel, and see, for me, being a living historian, it's one of those things that he would cite something, and it's like, well, this is a fiction novel, but Eckert had the footnotes to tell you where he got. He would have a discussion between Simon Kenton and Daniel Boone, and sure, he was making that all up, but
keep it interesting.
His footnote would be, well, both Kenton and Boone was up in Kentucky at that time. This all had happened, so this could have been a conversation.
So it was historical fiction, kind of based loosely on facts.
I love Eckert, and that's
to keep it interesting, so that you're not off while you're reading it. But the original Kentucky land, they call that. That's always fascinated me. It was correct me if I'm wrong, it was more or less a neutral hunting ground for all the tribes. They would basically put down grievances and not war into Kentucky so that they could gather, their supplies necessary for the winter. That's just a fascinating series of books, but I've always enjoyed his writing and of course, I'm enjoying this show. So I'm going to look into this vintage baseball. I need to do something. My bones are getting all deciduous here.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'm sure Chattanooga would love to have you.
What do you say your bones get deciduous? I think I got that too.
It happens. This sneaks up on you.
Jack Daniels is the cure.
Visit the Tennessee Vintage Baseball website. I know that there are still a few positions open. They were in the Chattanooga team.
Okay.
And there were some positions open in the Mechanics, the new Knoxville team. So, and generally a team, what we do is we have 15 people play on the team. That way you can pretty much guarantee that you'll have at least 9 players show up for a game. And then what we do is kind of like Little League. Everybody plays. We rotate. So I don't catch all a whole game. We rotate in catchers. We rotate out people who pitch.
We know a place that would be a good place for a game and already got bleachers sitting at it, Deb.
What's that?
Well, just think about it for a few
just
minutes.
tell me.
Down South Lee Highway. You got a friend down there.
Oh, at the polo.
At the polo field
Ooh.
at Benabout Farms.
Uh-huh.
That would be a great place. Parking.
And I think
wow.
I think that they would
They
think
would
that
love
was a lot
to do
of fun.
that. They are very involved with the 6th Cavalry history too. So you got a tie. The Chattanooga team would have a tie there. Thank you, RD.
Cool.
Thanks, RD.
Check that out. Go dig out that book and look that up.
All
I definitely will.
Hey, you need to visit the Sequoia Museum.
I will. I'll get my mom and dad out there. We need to start hitting the road, get them out.
That's right.
That's good.
Thank you, RD. Before we go on, tell me about the mound that is there. Is it actually what's the story of the mound?
Well, that's part of the memorial mound at Sequoia.
Is it a real mound?
Yes, it's a real
okay.
burial mound.
Okay.
It's not an ancient burial mound. It was created. It was kind of in the concept of we would return some of the remains back to the Cherokee, and they could build a memorial. And I think the original concept was like a big cornfield, and the remains would be buried out in this cornfield, and that would be there would be a plaque that it would explain what this was. Well, by the time it actually came about, when the museum was built, it was 192 remains that could be identified as 18th century Cherokee.
Okay.
So they knew, from the burial, there were, trade goods, there were items in with the remains that identified them as 18th century. And out of those 192, one was actually identified. That was Oconostota.
Oh.
The Cherokee that led the siege against Fort Loudon.
Now, how did we identify him?
Well, that's a really cool story to get off from the mound real quick. But Oconostota originally had moved up and was living with a white family near Morristown in the 1780s, I guess. And one day, according to the history, the family history, is Oconostota told his friend, "It's time for me to die. I want to go back to Chota and be buried, stretched out like a white man in the doorway of the council house at Chota." And so the friend loads him up. Now, whether he had passed and then was taken, or
we don't know.
They take him down there, whether it was a day, a month, a week. But Oconostota dies. His friend does and follows his rules. And then, of course, he tells these stories, and it's his sons that write all this down. So that's how we get it into it comes into the
Somebody
historical
wrote
record.
it down, Ron.
Oh, thank you.
So that's how we get into the historical record with the story.
So when they were excavating, they found the body across the doorway.
They're digging the
Holy
site
moly.
at the townhouse. They're digging away. They're finding other graves that are Cherokee burials. And then all of a sudden, boom, they hit some wood. Well, they dig a little more. What it turns out is they have found a cut off or sawn off or a dugout canoe.
Yes.
That had a lid on it. Inside the dugout canoe were the remains of a Cherokee man that were more than 6 feet tall. And we know from the historical record, Oconostota was over 6 feet tall. He was a huge, huge man. In there was a skinning knife. There was some glasses. They kind of get him confused with Ostenaca, who goes to England. But Oconostota had been to Charleston. He'd been to Williamsburg. He'd been to Savannah, I guess. He's been to all these places. He could have had glasses made. So he apparently had bad eyesight. But he had glasses made. They were found in the grave. Those are on the Emissaries of Peace exhibit over in North Carolina at the Museum of the Cherokee Indian. So you can actually see those spectacles, those glasses. So he was the only Cherokee identified because of what was left is in the record, that where they was buried and that how he was buried. And so some archaeologists wouldn't say this is Oconostota, but most scholars would go, that's enough evidence to say this.
Well, it's definitely circumstantial.
So now
it's all pointing the right direction.
90 plus are buried at the mound?
And the 191, so Oconostota was buried up at the doorway at the townhouse at Chota. So he's buried up there, was reinterred, excuse me.
Oh, okay.
And so the rest, the 191, were buried. They created vaults. The remains were placed, and then the mound was built on top of that to commemorate. There again, that was part of what the Cherokee, the Eastern Band, the Cherokee Nation wanted to remember the Cherokee that were there, that had been there. And for years, it's a prime example. This was before NAGPRA. NAGPRA is the Native American Repatriation Act. Comes out in the 90s. It gives federally recognized tribes the right to go and get their ancestors' remains, religious artifacts from museums, universities, public institutions. They can go and get those back now. Well, this was before that. This helped set the precedent for that. The Cherokee, all these other tribes around the world have been saying for years, these are the ancestors, these are human beings, these are our grandparents, these are our great-grandparents.
Yeah.
And so this was where that came about. They were returned back. So
they're probably unknown graves. TVA flooded a lot of land that was Cherokee land, and they're burial off. But they say, the progress got us, and that's why your museum and others are so important. Go ahead, caller. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
I just have a question, Ron.
Yes.
It's the barmaid. Go ahead.
Good Sports quit.
I have no earthly idea. I think they've had Arnold's mother has been placed in rehab because she had a fall, I believe it was, and she's been in rehab. So Arnold hadn't been here,
and the weather's been crazy.
And Tommy's missed a couple of days, I know, but I think it's coming back. I think just weather and some health issues got them.
We need some more shows on that radio.
You need to call Daniel Brantley, the general manager of the Whoop Radio.
But thank goodness Mark Grisham's gone.
You need to call Daniel Brantley.
He called in there the other day, and boy, he laid one on me.
What did he lay one on you for?
He said, he was talking about Bullet. He said he missed Bullet talking to him. And he said, that red-headed wildcat can kiss mine. And he's come right out and said it.
Yeah.
I thought, well, what did I do to him?
Yeah.
You
could whoop him, probably.
Bullet hadn't called us in a couple of weeks. What's happened to Bullet?
I don't know.
Is he sick?
No, Bullet's okay. I talked to him last night.
Okay.
Well,
we'll have to check on him.
We'll check on him anyway, though.
Thank you, Brad.
All right.
Bye-bye, dear.
Did you see the Booze Traveler where we drank moonshine? She left me.
She left you again. Charlie, and in your gift shop up there, whatever you call it.
Yes, gift shop.
Do you have the map that shows the old Cherokee Nation?
Yes, we have
yeah. It's pre-18.
As you get older, this is going to happen more often.
It was done. It was done. I think it's 1880. It was.
I don't really remember. I just call it the Cherokee Nation map, and it was one thing for me to be able to see that the first time and see the original 7 states that were. I think that's what it's got on
right.
it.
Yes.
And the first presentation I saw about that, someone had it enlarged and cut in pieces, and at the end of each treaty, she would peel off the part that was affected by that treaty, and by the time we got down to it, the one chunk which is now Bradley County was left. And so it was pretty moving. But anyway, that's one place that you can buy that map in person.
We actually have.
It's a colorized. Yeah.
But this is the Royce. There it is. The Royce map, and I believe it's 1880. It was an ethnological map that was done for the Smithsonian, and it's an incredible map. It has a list of all those treaties where it starts with South Carolina, and then it runs through the very last treaty that they give up. The last here land here.
It's a pretty nice map, and it's a very colorized. It'd make a nice little hanging at your house too, Charlie.
If you look really close, that's the interesting thing. You can see like the Tellico Blockhouse. You can see the roads that are running from what becomes Maryville. You can see the roads and the accesses coming across from the mountains from North Carolina over into Tennessee. It's a wonderful map just to sit and kind of take a magnifying glass and just sit there and wow.
This and the word treaty in the 1800s meant get the hell off my property. That's what the treaty meant. I mean,
we're moving in and you're moving out. Is what the word treaty meant.
I think one thing I learned doing the show is one day the word Indian giver. I always thought is the Indians give you things and they were cheated you, but the word Indian giver, you give it to the Indians and you took it back from them.
Exactly.
So I had that term reversed there. So an Indian giver.
And I always thought if the Lord's willing and the creek don't rise meant the water was getting higher. I didn't know it meant that the creeks were going to rebel.
Oh yeah,
the tribe, the Creeks.
That's where that comes from. War of 1812 and the Creek War.
Well, this time has passed so quickly. We didn't.
Once Charleston is going to become a very historical area here in the United States, and then you add Sequoia, and you add Charleston, and you add Red Clay. You could spend 2 or 3 weeks in this area. Then
the Cherokee Removal
Park over in
Moccasin Bend is being developed.
There is so much history
its
here.
Time has come.
Brainerd Chapel or the
Brainerd Mission.
Okay, now to get to the Sequoia Birthplace Museum, real quick, you go up 411.
You go straight up 411.
You go up 411 very slowly, or you get to meet the natives with the little blue lights on their car.
But tell us where you turn when 411.
You just go straight up 411, get to Von Orr, look for Highway 360, look for the signs for Fort Loudon State Historic Area and Sequoia Birthplace Museum. Once you see the 360, if you're familiar with the Sloan Center, Sloan's there in Von Orr. If they don't have it, you don't need it. They got everything you ever need. But you turn right there at Sloan's. It's now a Shell station. Turn right, and that about 1.25 miles. Sequoia is out 1.25 miles. You'll go over a little bridge onto the island, and we'll be like the first road on the right. Fort Loudon is immediately when you cross over the bridge. Fort Loudon is right there, first left.
And plan to see both of them.
And take the time. Fort Loudon, you got Fort Loudon State Historic Area. You got the reconstructed fort down there. They've got a nice little museum, visitor center.
Sure.
Sequoia
nice little film.
Nice film. Yep. Sequoia Birthplace
Picnic
Museum.
tables.
We've got picnic tables. We got a hiking trail. The fort has a hiking trail. We've got our museum, our exhibits, the reconstruction of. We've built a blacksmith shop. We've got a 1810 Cherokee home. We've built a dog trot log cabin.
Oh yeah.
And we're working. We've still got some things to finish there. We have the memorial mound, the reconstruction of the framework for the townhouse, so you can actually see how big the townhouse.
I think you had the logs laying there when we were coming there last time.
But there's also the Telco Blockhouse. It's part of Fort Loudon State Historic Area. Up the road 12 miles, you've got Tanasi site. You've got the Chota site. And that's just right there.
I don't know. Have we been to those two sites, Deb? I don't think so. Well,
and there's the little Von Orr Historical Museum. It's I'm not sure exactly the hours.
It's called Von Orr.
Vonner. It's Vonner. Vonner. You just say it all at one time, Vonner.
Vonner.
It's like Wootwell over in Whitwell, but it's Wootwell.
Well, it definitely is a place that you could spend a whole day and not still see everything, and it's beautiful in the meantime.
Hours of the museum?
9 to 5 Monday through Saturday, and 12 to 5 on Sunday. Open every day.
$3 for adults.
$3 for adults, and there's discounts. We have AAA discount. We have senior discount.
You have a lot of little videos playing throughout too, don't you?
Yeah, it's Bill Landry.
Bill Landry, yeah. I remember seeing all those in there. Very, very educational. And if you have any, they've been talking. There's some people here pushing to get a movie made about the Trail of Tears.
Right.
So if that's if you're interested in the Trail of Tears, the Cherokee Indians, the alphabet it wasn't called an alphabet, it was called a
Silbertary.
Silbertary. Okay.
Well, and I love the fact that I believe it's your museum, that there's a Donald Duck comic book laying there that's printed in Cherokee, isn't there?
Dagwood, and there's
I just remember seeing, and I thought that was so interesting. Yeah. But anyway, it's a nice little museum. Go see it. Charlie,
support the museums
so
in our area there. There's little museums all over the area. If you go up 411, there's what's the one there at Englewood that we went to?
The textile.
Awesome museum.
Go and search museums in Tennessee, and you'll be surprised how many hundreds they are in Tennessee. You can go to about any community in Tennessee and see one. We went to one in Lewis County in Hole in the Wall, Tennessee, and it was it told about the people camped there, and then there was a safari room. We don't know how the safari room
We think the person with the most money that donated the most got to put his safari collection
He donated his 300 stuffed safari animals, and you're going through this old cabin. So there's a series on TV, Mysteries at the Museum. Yeah. We're trying to figure out why there was safari room in Lewisburg, Tennessee.
Thank you so much, Charlie. We always appreciate you being here.
Hey, folks, we'll be back here next week, and so look forward to seeing you. This has been Old Town Cleveland. Always Write down your history. We wouldn't know where this was. Write down your history. Get the old pictures out of. I've been getting some old pictures out of my mom's house, and I have no idea who they are because I didn't sit down with my mom and ask her to say who they were. And, write down who, get a little sticker, write who's on the back of the picture, share those pictures with people. You'd be surprised what memories you can bring back. Your grandfather may have been someone's best friend or worked with people, or an old store building and people where they shopped at. There's so much history out there, and if you don't take care of it, someday there'll be another program talking about wish we knew what was happening in 2015. Folks, we'll see you next week here on Old Town Cleveland.
Oh, I didn't get to say Aunt Pearl. He usually says we'll always remember Pearl.
Where'd the old town go?
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Check into checking the cash.